Cook here. Doug, it's good to see you again. How was your past weekend?
How you doing, everybody? I'm doing great.
All right. Everything went well for you last weekend? You enjoyed the games? You enjoyed all the action?
I enjoyed my Dolphins beating the crap out of the Bills. That was fun. That has been a long time overdue.
Well, they've had a very impressive running game. We'll talk about that very soon, okay?
All right. Sounds like a deal, Phil.
All right. Moving over here to my left, we got Rob Castro over here. Rob, as always, it's good to have you back on the show. And you're wearing pink in honor of Breast Awareness Week, aren't you?
Well, I thought we were all supposed to wear pink today. I guess you guys didn't get the memo?
We must have had a white out here or something. I got a black shirt on, and it was pink before, but for some reason it's appearing black right now at the moment.
Well, I'll let you guys slide. That's fine.
Don't know the memo.
Okay, so real men don't wear pink, but we do have Robbie along, and he's hanging out with Pierre Garçon these days. Okay. So, but there was a lot of action. At this point in the season, what Doug and I usually like to do, and Robbie doesn't really know about this because this is his first year on the show, is we like to recap. Now that we're, believe it or not, guys, 25% of the way through the game. 4 games are in the books. We're starting to see some trends emerge with the teams and with the fantasy players. So we like to recap things, see if this is the real deal or if these are a fluke.
It's time for the quarterly report, Phil, I believe is what you're saying.
That's right. You get every quarter in high school, you get grades, and we're here to grade the players in the fantasy football world on how great they've been. I hope, Robbie, you're ready to start issuing your marks.
Absolutely. I think that one guy that's really stood out is Joe Flacco, Baltimore Ravens quarterback. A guy that I said coming into week 1, you could have gotten this guy in week 8 through you could have gotten this guy round 8, round 11. Started giving you 8 touchdown passes to go along with 3 interceptions. But most importantly, he's getting the job done. He's thrown for over 200 yards in each of the first 4 games. This guy's really stood out in my books as a great fantasy performer.
Yeah, I'm actually heading up to that game to see them play the Bengals this week, and I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be fun. We're going to be doing some tailgating in Winnebago and everything. It should be a really good time. We have some great seats for it, so we're really looking forward to seeing what he can do in person, Doug. But look at the top 3 guys on this list, Doug. I mean, the experts were right about these guys. Were we not going to see Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, and Phillip Rivers at the top of this list here? I mean, these are the top guys every year.
That sounds pretty accurate. Other than Big Ben and Joe getting in there, then in between Breeze, who was supposed to be like number 2 or number 3, and so forth. And let's face it, Gerard is doing a lot better than what he has in the past. Gerard actually being in the top 10 after a quarter of a season is pretty impressive for him. Well, and Favre getting peaked into the top 12 as well.
I think Gerard, though, that's a guy you want to look for in these upcoming weeks, especially playing against better secondaries, especially in that division, that conference that they're in. I think he had that one good game last week where he threw for 3 touchdown passes against the Titans. I see him slipping maybe out of the top 10 list, and maybe a guy like Tom Brady, Brett Favre, or even like a Tony Romo or Carson Palmer really needs to step it up, get it done.
Yeah, this is the point where we like to try to trade for the guys that are more towards the bottom list. Maybe you can make a value play for a guy like Tom Brady. Again, I remember going back to the start of the season, guys like Gerard, guys like Manning, they had great matchups, and that's what made them great draft picks, and that's why they're at the top of the list. But let's move on to running backs. I mean, the first running back is Adrian Peterson. I mean, he was the first guy drafted by everybody in every draft.
Well, not in my draft. Somebody drafted Maurice Jones-Drew as the top guy, which was kind of a mistake. But, hey, he's checking in at number 3. That's not too bad.
It depends on the scoring system, Doug. But Chris Johnson is a guy that we watched at the start of the season when we were taping our first episode. He was kind of exploding in that game, and he's continued to do so. I mean, he had that one big game, which kind of skews his stats.
And Willis McGahee is a guy that you shouldn't, apparently, according to the experts, shouldn't have drafted because Ray Rice was the starter. But if you are on Willis McGahee, you right now have the 4th best running back through 4 games in the season. That's not too bad.
Similarly speaking, if you drafted Ray Rice, you got rewarded for that, though, Doug. But before we move over to Robbie, because I know you were big on Fred Jackson, we'll be amiss if we don't let Doug talk about the Miami Dolphin running back situation for a minute.
Well, obviously they have a good committee there. They have a committee of 2. Ronnie Brown is the chairman, and Ricky Williams is the co-chairman. They're both doing really well. They both ran for a lot of yards the last couple of weeks, especially versus Buffalo. They just destroyed Buffalo on the ground. Chad Henne's first game really didn't matter, Phil. It didn't really matter that he was, his first starting game in the league because all they did was run the ball, and that's all he needed to do. It's a really strong running game.
I like a guy like Cedric Benson for Cincinnati, especially the way he came out last year. In his final 4 games, he led all running backs in those final 4 with, I think, over 450 yards rushing on the ground, ended up with like 800 yards total, and he missed the first 8 weeks of that season. And now he's in the top 10 right now. Another value guy like we were talking about to begin the season. This guy has really boosted up charts, and I think he's a good guy to watch, especially as a number 2 fantasy running back. Look, you can even look for a nice little trade out of this guy and get some compensation back for him.
Yeah, I can't believe it. He's really certainly a guy that's benefited, I think, from T.J. Hushmanzada's departure from Cincinnati. I mean, that has a lot to do with his improvements, I think.
And Julius Jones is my favorite value pick of this list.
Yeah, and moving right through the list. I mean, that's about it. I mean, we have Marshawn Lynch coming back. How do you see Marshawn Lynch's return affecting what they're going to do?
I don't really see. I think they're going to go rotate with Fred Jackson because Fred Jackson's proved that he could be in that system, especially with Trent Edwards struggling a little bit. I think both those guys are going to get the bulk of the carries. They're still going to split time. Fred Jackson's a better pass catcher out of the backfield, and I think that Marshawn Lynch is more of a north-south running back, where Fred Jackson's more shifty east-west type guy. Both guys are going to get the majority of the carries inside the goal line. I think Marshawn Lynch, though, gets more touchdowns.
He's a very boring running back to watch play football. But let's move on to the wide receivers. Doug, who's at the top of the list of the receivers there?
Well, I think it's Steve Smith, but it's not the typical Steve Smith that you would think of for Carolina, who's been usually at the top of the list for the past several years. This is Steve Smith from the New York Giants, apparently one of Eli Manning's favorite targets. And Eli is also throwing a lot of passes to a guy named Mario Manningham. So Manning to Manningham, that's something at least it's easy to remember, and both those guys are in the top 10 for Eli.
That was very poetic of you, Doug, right there. I mean, it's incredible that he's posted 34 receptions in the first 4 games there. What's he on pace for there? About 100.
Hey, so are you guys shocked that Larry Fitzgerald's not even on this list in the top 15?
Noah Bolden,
right. And that shows why I think without Todd Haley being their offensive coordinator, they're really struggling on offense right now and trying to find an identity with their two running backs that really are in their second, third year, and Beanie Wells being in his first year. That really hurts their team big time.
I mean, they were a team, and we should actually take a minute out here to make sure to acknowledge Steve Breast in honor of Breast Awareness Month as well.
That's why I'm wearing a pink shirt.
That's true. And I'm proud to announce that Mike Sims-Walker, a member of my WCOF fantasy team, checking in at number 4, and I haven't started him yet.
Now, did you draft him or did you get him off waivers?
I drafted him in the 19th round.
All right, very good.
But I haven't started him yet, and I said I started Clinton Portis, and we'll get to that later. I probably won't be starting Portis or any other Redskin for the rest of the year because they are quite possibly the worst team in the league. Certainly the worst team with 2 wins.
At least stay away from Kansas City Chiefs players or Washington Redskins players,
Rams.
maybe even Carolina Panthers players. That's another thing. Steve Smith struggling too.
Reggie Wayne, that's not shocking to me to see Reggie Wayne there. Vincent Jackson may be a little bit surprising to a lot of people. Considering,
I'm sort of surprised that Deshaun Jackson's really come up and made some big grabs, especially yards-wise. He's averaging like 17 yards every catch, and he's got a couple touchdown catches too, and a one return for a touchdown. A guy that you could have gotten in the 6th, 7th round because you didn't know how his first year, how he was going to carry over from that first year, that transition rookie year. He was solid last year, and when they drafted him out of Cal, they thought that he was going to be a slot guy, maybe look for him to maybe catch 4 to 6 balls a game, but not really be a game-breaking type or a game-changing type wide receiver like he's opposing as it being a threat right now.
Yeah, he certainly is. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's an incredible talent, and I think he is too. And I think he's only played 3 games. That makes his appearance on this list even more impressive. Moving on to the tight ends here, I'm glad to see that all the John Carlson hype is over. He came in and had that one big game where he caught like all the yards and all the touchdowns in week 1, and he's slowly falling down the list, and we can finally shut up about talking about him.
He's not over yet.
He only slid down four spots.
I guess from 1 to 6, man.
Okay, well,
he had 2 touchdowns in the first game and like
180 yards. Yeah, Peyton Manning throwing to Dallas Clark, enough said.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knew that was coming. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. Vernon Davis, he's continuing to make your Maryland Terrapins proud there. And Chris Cooley for the local boys. There's one guy from the Washington Redskins, besides Jason Campbell, that's worth having on your fantasy team.
Cooley is worth starting. I'd like to see Tony Gonzalez on this list, but the fact is he actually already had a bye week, and he does have about the same amount of yards as Shockey, 160 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he already had 1 game less than all the rest of these people except for Brent Selleck, who's still checking in at number 5, even though the fact that he already had a bye week.
Yeah, and as Robbie told you, Ben Watson scored 2 touchdowns on the first game of the year and hasn't seen the red zone since.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
He really has.
No, not at all. He's always a 1-game wonder.